Happy birthday to the Mother series. How's it going, everybody? I wanted to make a special video, although I did do a little tiny video already. But I wanted to make a very special video, kind of a discussion type video today in honor of the Mother series 30th anniversary, which is today, which is insane. On this day, 1989, the very first Mother game came out in Japan. We didn't get to see it till like almost 26 years later, but I digress. We still have access to it now in the form of Earthbound Beginnings. But yes, 30 years ago to this day, the game known as Mother came out in Japan, and it marks the birth of what is, in my opinion, one of the greatest video game series of all time, greatest franchise. It only spawned really two sequels, so it's a trilogy of games. And of course, all of you Mother fans who know the series well know that Shigesato Itoi, the main creator of the series, has said that it would be impossible, in his words, impossible to create another Mother game. So sadly it's a trilogy, but me as a fan, I'm okay with a trilogy. I know there's basically an open invitation for a fourth Mother game to be made by somebody else, and I know there's been one prominent fan project that has been worked on for several years, which then in the last 2 years or so got rebranded because of copyright issues and whatnot. So long story short, as far as official games, as of now, the series is a trilogy, and most likely will stay a trilogy for a long time, if not permanently. We'll see. But in spite of that, the series is very beloved. It isn't a series that was really well known to a lot of people, really until I would argue maybe the last 10-15 years. So probably about half of its life, it's been really, aside from in Japan, pretty much unknown by a lot of people. And I wanted to today talk about, what the series means to me, and what are these games, especially Earthbound and Mother 3, what do these games mean to me, and why do I love this series so much? Why do I love these games? And it's something I've been thinking about a lot in the last, couple days or so leading up to this, and it's hard to put down in words. I think maybe what I could do to kind of explain is kind of give my history with the series. And I guess if I have to start somewhere, it would have to be Super Smash Brothers, actually, which for me as a Western fan of this series, I think a lot of people who were exposed to the series for the first time were through Ness being a playable character in Super Smash Bros., the original Super Smash Bros. So circa 1999, I get Super Smash Brothers for Christmas or my birthday, one of the two. And one of the unlockable characters was Ness, and I really liked playing as Ness. I thought he was a really strong character, and he just seemed cool, and I used to read the little character bios in Smash Bros, and I remember reading that he was in one game, Earthbound, and I really didn't know anything about Earthbound, nor had I ever heard about it, but I read the description of his character, and he sounded kind of interesting. I think the character description says something about, Ness, being from a small town and a meteorite crash lands in his hometown and blah, blah, blah. I thought that sounded like a kind of a cool premise for a game. So for me, I eventually did look into Earthbound, and I did initially emulate it, to be honest. It was actually one of the very first games I ever emulated, along with Mario's Missing randomly, but that's another story. And this had to have been about 1999, 2000, when I first got my computer, that I actually first played Earthbound. So it was released here in 1994 in America, so I was about 5 years late to the party, but it was very shortly after Ness's inclusion in Smash Brothers that I played the game for the first time. And I can honestly say I was hooked immediately as soon as I started playing Earthbound. There was something about it that I found you know, I've tried introducing people to the series, good friends of mine, and I've had trouble kind of getting people into the series. And I always kind of thought it was interesting because for me it was never an issue for me getting into the series. I loved it immediately, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was just kind of the quirkiness of it, or the graphics, kind of the charm of how the game looked and how it played. I don't know what it was about it. And also it has, of course, you know, a lot of sci-fi elements to it as well, which I've always been attracted to, is a lot of sci-fi type of stuff. So that was also part of it, but it's hard to explain. Maybe it was because also I really fell in love with Ness's character in Smash Brothers as well. So the idea, I don't know if it was maybe the idea of like exploring his character in his game more, that was exciting to me. But nonetheless, Earthbound really gripped me as soon as I played it when I was a kid, and I played it as a kid at least 4 or 5 times through, I would say. Possibly more than that. I loved the characters, aside from Ness. I loved Paula, Jeff, and Pooh. I loved all the quirky dialogue and the humor. The game used to make me laugh, like, constantly when I was a kid, because there's just such funny dialogue in it. And I remember finding the enemies that you fight really interesting, like some of the really interesting designs. Like, I particularly like the Kraken for some reason, and the New Age Retro Hippie, and the Insane Cultists, and a few of those. And, of course, the Starmen. The Starmen were great, too. But, I should say the music as well. The music was really, really wonderful. Like, the music gripped me immediately when I first played the game, and I always, just right from the get-go, when you first hear the Onett theme, I just love it. As a kid, it was just something, the game just has this charm that is unexplainable. And these days, to me now, really nostalgic, because, you know, 1999, I say it's the 30th anniversary. Well, this year would then be probably about the 20-year anniversary since I initially played the game. So for me, it was kind of, I don't know, there's something really magical and just, I don't know, there's this quality about it that it just appealed to me. It's kind of I'm kind of a weird person, and it's a weird game, so I don't know, I guess it was just a good fit, I don't know. And, you know, I remember finding the ending, which I'm going to try to avoid too many spoilers in this video, just because I know there's a lot of people who watch my channel who don't really know the storylines of the game too well. But I did do a Let's Play of Earthbound with my brother on this channel too, and the ending was so weird and so compelling to me, and I remember that really sticking with me as a kid. I would have been about 10 years old, 11 years old, maybe 12 at the latest. I was 11, 12 years old when I initially played it, and I remember the ending being so odd, just so dark and ominous and so much different than the rest of the game, and it was a really hard part of the game too, when you first take the phase disorder into the past, and you approach Gygas's lair, you know. But I don't know, there was just something about it that really captivated me, and to this day it remains one of my favorite games of all time, probably top 5 games of all time, for, you know, a number of reasons, mostly just for my initial love of it, and that love just staying, you know, true all these years. But I think also another thing that might have gripped me with the game, and I mentioned I was about 11 or 12, and these characters, of course, you know, Ness, Paula, Jeff, and Pooh are around that age, 12, 13, 14, and it was kind of cool being a kid and playing as kids on an adventure, and I'd never really experienced a game like that before Earthbound. And this was even still well into the Nintendo 64 era, and you have to understand, for me, I also was a big Nintendo fanboy. I didn't have a PlayStation at that point either, so there's a lot of games that I missed in the interim there, and so Earthbound was a unique experience in that way too. Being a kid, playing a game where you're kids walking around trying to save the world was very charming and very, very relatable, you know. And so, much like many other fans of the series, I became obsessed with the game, and I found you know, when I first played the game and ran through it on our first computer we got in about 1999, 2000, around that era, or around that time, I became kind of obsessed with trying to... It would have had to have been, by the way, before 2000, I think, because I remember going on Nintendo's, like, really, really old website and seeing, you know, Earthbound 64 coming soon, you know. So I remember that. I remember when Earthbound 64 was still in development and hearing about it. So, this was right before Earthbound 64 was canceled, which would have been in, like, summer 2000, something like that. So it's all around the same time. And around that time, I discovered a website called Starman.net, which, if anybody who's a fan of this series knows, there was pretty much two huge fan websites, Starman.net and Earthbound Central. And Starman.net was the one that I was always on and always loved, and I submitted fan art to it. If you look up Stanley the Bugman under the fan art section, you'll see some 12 or 13-year-old drawings by me of some of the Earthbound characters. And I remember writing a fan fiction and stuff, including some Earthbound characters, all kinds of stuff. I mean, I just became obsessed, and there was a lot of buzz. I remember clear as day, the day that the commercial ran in Japan for Mother 1 and 2 for the Game Boy Advance, which I think was around circa like 2003, whatever it was, so a few years later. And I remember seeing that on Starman.net because I used to check that website almost daily. And at the end of the announcement for the Japanese, this is the Japanese commercial of Mother 1 and 2 for the Game Boy Advance, they kind of slyly added at the end, "We're making Mother 3 too." And I remember everybody just being absolutely, you know, I remember the entire website just exploding because everybody was excited, because for those of you who don't know, Mother 3 was supposed to come out as Earthbound 64 and was canceled. So the fact that the project had basically been restarted for the Game Boy Advance, people were really excited about. And I remember all the hype up to the release, and basically finding out that Mother 3 would not be getting localized. And I remember being not involved with, but I remember very closely paying attention to a lot of the petitions and all of the sort of fan hype around getting Mother 3 localized. And I signed several petitions that I'm pretty sure it was Starman.net. Yeah, it was definitely Starman.net that put forth, of which each petition they did, I mean, I think the first petition they did, they had a couple tens of thousands of views. And I'm pretty sure the last petition that they did before they stopped petitioning Nintendo was upwards of 300,000, I said views, signatures. And I signed all the petitions, obviously, and I tried to get my friends to sign it. I remember that. I remember going to school and be like, sign the Mother 3 petition so we can get the game, because I want it. And there were people who signed it. I got to sign it who never even played Earthbound, but they just did it because I was annoying them about it. And, like, I remember my computers class in middle school. God, this is a long time ago. I remember middle school petitioning people and be like, can you please sign this petition? You know, so I was doing my duty back then. I was a big fan. And, so there was that whole long period of suffering, from essentially 2003 to, well, the present. Mother 3 is yet to be localized in the West, very sadly. And, in the meantime, there was also, of course, Earthbound Zero, as I have always known it, and still kind of refer to it as, to be honest, because for those who don't know the story, Earthbound Zero is the first Mother, which was never brought over to the US either, for the NES. It was a game that was fully translated officially by Nintendo was going to be released, and then last minute they pulled the plug on it. They had a repro card of it, and it resurfaced years later, and some fans actually dumped the ROM, and they were able to, like, it became widely available on the internet as an emulation of that original cartridge. So there is a fully translated version, which now is the version that was released as Earthbound Beginnings a few years ago for the Wii U Virtual Console. I'm going to do a whole video on this, by the way. I meant to do a much bigger video about the whole series, which ended up being a long script that I couldn't really, that I had a bit of trouble putting together, but I think it's going to eventually evolve into a brief history of Mother series, so keep an eye out for that, guys. But long story short, anyway, the Mother 1 ROM was available, so that was something I played, but never was able to really get too far in it as a kid, because it's a very, very difficult game. So really, for a long, long time, for me, the series was just Earthbound. It was really the only game that I was super familiar with, and I'd play it over and over again. And of course, after Mother 3 was released in Japan, I dreamed of playing the game, of it being localized. And then finally, Starman.net took it upon themselves to just translate the game themselves in English, and they had Tomato do it. I remember him posting on Starman.net and talking about it, and everybody being hyped. And for some reason, the fan translation came out in, I think it was 2008 or so, it was released. I remember downloading it and trying it immediately, but not, for some reason, following through with playing Mother 3. I know that sounds weird because it's like I waited so long to play the game and just never did. But this was also at a point where I had a lot personally going on in my life, and I was, 2008 was a couple years after I graduated from high school, and I was going through a lot. I had a rough go of things for a while. I also fell out of video games for quite a while there. In my very late teens, early 20s, I really fell out of video games for quite a while. And I guess I just lost interest in it and just kind of went by the wayside. And then I moved to Montana in 2011, 2012. And I and I had a kind of rough go towards the end of my stay there. I had some pretty severe depression. Things weren't going well. I ended up coming home. I ended up feeling like I kind of failed because I basically, long story short, went out there to kind of start a new life and, just kind of find myself a little more and whatnot. And I came home and I felt like I kind of failed that. And I remember I was working like a seasonal job at Toys R Us, funny enough. And I remember I would work late, and there was often times at night I'd be up and I needed something to do. And I decided I wanted to play video games, so I was going around, and I don't know what compelled me to, but I decided, you know what, I think it's finally time to play Mother 3. And for some reason, it just hooked me immediately. That first night, I played the first couple hours of the game. And for those who haven't played the game, again, trying to avoid spoilers, there's a big event that happens about the first, I'd say, 2 hours of the game. That's very, 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 it's a punch to the gut, man. It's a really big moment in the beginning of the game. And I remember that just flooring me, just blowing me away. That a game, especially a Nintendo game, and such a lighthearted, colorful game. This is the game that's the sequel to Earthbound, a beloved game in my childhood. That it could have that kind of depth to it, that it could have such an emotionally impactful scene. And as I continued playing the game, and again, you gotta understand where my state of mind was at this point. I was definitely a bit lost, and I was a bit cynical about the world, and I remember feeling very alone at the time. And I played this game, and it just hit me hard, man. I don't know what it was about this game. I just fell in love with it. It was something I needed at the time. It was like, and I'll probably do a whole separate video maybe on this too. I mean, I could do tons of videos on the Mother series because I love it so much, but there's just such deeper themes in Mother 3 throughout the whole series, sure, but I think Mother 3 takes it to a different level that just I don't think I could have appreciated as much as a kid. And as I've often said, Earthbound in many ways is the game of my childhood. Maybe that's a bit exaggerated. It's one of maybe several games of my childhood. Mother 3, I will comfortably say, is the game of my adulthood. Mother 3 is a game that I think made me realize a few little things about myself even, and it's interesting that a game could make me do that and make me think that, but it's just the deeper themes of, like, you know, you have this little town or this little village of people where life is so simple, and then you have this family and they're together and they love each other, and all of this, you know, this nice family, this nice community, this peaceful town is basically wrought with turmoil and sadness, incredible sadness and loss, and you know, you have this world being transformed by, you know, there's this theme about, if you even look at the logo in Mother 3, this sort of like nature versus technology theme, and it kind of explores, like, you know, Tazmily Village, the main area where, you know, Lucas and the main characters are from, is basically a town where there's, you know, there's no money, there's no industry, it's just a small village where everybody just kind of does things for each other out of the kindness of their heart, and it's a community, and it's about people and family and love and these things, and you start to see that becoming more and more challenged as, you know, these people, the pig masks as they're known, army comes in and starts changing things, and you see tragedy, and you see people facing change, and you see people dealing with loss, and it was just, I don't know how to describe it. It was something about where I was in my life then, and the deeper messages of that game, and then really the whole idea of being, to me, it made me, I feel, appreciate what I had a little more, and it's hard to explain, I don't know. It just made me realize that, you know, the world is constantly changing, and the world can be a dark place, but there are things like love and friendship and camaraderie that can overcome those things. And these are some of the deeper meanings in Mother, the series as a whole, and particularly in the third game. And just the way the characters in Mother 3 interact, and the development between the characters, and some other very, very heart-wrenching scenes in the game. I mean, I cried at least twice playing this game. I've never cried playing a game that many times. You know, it just emotionally and intellectually just touched me on a certain level that I can't even explain. And to the point where I rant and rave about this game, to the point where my wife said to me once, I feel like I feel like I need to play this game so I understand you, you know, like so I can understand a certain aspect, that, you know, a certain part of you. Or so I'm butchering what she said, so sorry, sweetie, if you watch this, but she said something along those lines when we first started dating. She's like, I feel like to fully understand you, I need to play this game, or something of that nature. And yeah, man, so I don't know. It was just, to me, this series, and then I guess I should finish up with, when Earthbound Beginnings was released, I did finally run through and play that one as well. Tough game, but I'm glad I did, because I think also that game has a really big payoff at the end, and it's a sweet little game. It was nice to see the origins of the series, and in a way has its very charming moments. Particularly, there's a nice scene between Nintendo and Anna that happens, and the ending is really interesting, and I love the music in the first Mother. It's got some of the best music in the whole series. And I don't know, I have such a long history with the series, and I have such a deep connection in many ways. Number one, feeling like part of kind of like this special community of Mother fans, as we are just very passionate about this series and about these games, and watching this series evolve, and watching it really from, you know, being a fan of it, you know, in the, you know, at the tail end of the millennium here, you know, till the present for 20 years. I got to watch the game essentially rise out of obscurity to being like just shy of mainstream. Even if you haven't played it, most people know about Earthbound and the Mother series, and it's become a meme to the point where, you know, come on Reggie, give us Mother 3. It's a meme, you know. It's like the fact that Nintendo has yet to localize it is it's become a meme in itself. And I don't know, I just have a long history with the series, and it touches me on such an emotional and just at such an emotional level that I can't help but you know, be excited for events like this, like the 30th anniversary of Mother, or you know, the 10-year anniversary of Mother 3, which was 2016. I really thought, because we got Earthbound Beginnings in 2015 for the, I believe it was the 20th anniversary of Earthbound. Yeah, the 20th anniversary of Earthbound's release. I thought for sure the following year we were going to get Mother 3 localized for Mother 3's 10th anniversary, but it never happened, and it still hasn't happened. So I kind of, like, I'm at the point where I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe eventually, but it just still seems unlikely. And I was really hoping for Nintendo to do some kind of big thing for the 30th anniversary of the series. They are doing a Spirit Board event in Smash Ultimate, which has become such a joke. It's kind of funny how Nintendo doesn't care about the series, but I don't know. I don't expect some big announcement. I hope I'm eating crow because this is pre-recorded, so I hope I'm eating crow at the time this is posted, and that there's some like random announcement of, like, I don't even care what it is, something Mother related today. But my hunch is there isn't gonna be anything big, and if not, that's okay too. It's almost become a just a part of being a fan of this series, is just that Nintendo. It's kind of funny that fans have often had to take the series into their own hands to be able to get things done with it. And I think people haven't. I think that all of our efforts as fans of the series haven't been in vain. I mean, we did get Earthbound Beginnings. We've had Earthbound on the Virtual Console and the Super NES Classic and whatnot. So there's been a lot of victories, but the big pie in the sky, the big prize, is still eluding us. We just need our Mother 3 localized, and we'll see. And for me now, I mean, there's a million ways to play the game. As you guys can see, I've got a repro cart that my friend Kevin got me for my birthday one year. Shout out to you, Kev. Thank you so much for that. And I've got a copy, of course, of Earthbound here that I've had for a while. And I have the Super NES Classic, so Earthbound's on there, and I have plenty of ways to play. And I've got Earthbound Beginnings and everything. But, so it's not even a matter of, like, me not being able to play the game when I want to play it. It's just a matter of principle on this point, and, or excuse me, at this point. And I would love to see Mother 3 localized, and maybe a collection of the series or something. But I'm not going to hold my breath. Nintendo, I hope you prove me wrong today, or at least in the near future. And I don't know. This is a bit of a weird video for me, like in terms of the pacing of it. But I just wanted to let you guys know that where I'm coming from and why I love this series so much. I have such a history with it. You know, I have all of that nostalgia for Earthbound from my childhood, and just like from just the emotional impact that Mother 3 had on me at a time of my life where I was really I was going through a lot. I just love this series dearly, and I just wanted to pay tribute as much as I could on what I think is an enormous milestone, and fitting, really. 3 games, 3 decades, you know, fitting for the series, for this series, and you guys can expect pretty soon. I was hoping to have a really big video, like I said, but pretty soon I decided the script that I had started working on, I'm going to make my next video, which will be a brief history of the Mother series, and I intend to get quite in depth with it since it's only 3 games. So I hope you guys will look forward to that. And I guess that's all I really want to say. And just again, like, happy anniversary to the series that I love so much and has been done so much for me and been so important to me. And I hope for anybody who is a subscriber of mine or comes across this video and has never played the series, try it out, man. I suggest starting with Earthbound, then going to, and if you love that, go right to Mother 3, and if you love both, give the first Mother its due as well, and because it is also still worth a playthrough. All 3 games are top quality, great stuff. Shigesato Itoi is a genius, and yeah, I just highly recommend playing through each of these games at least once. But that being said, I want to thank you guys for watching this, hearing me ramble on and on about this, and you know, okiduska, and also boing. See you later. Peace.